Hey, shalom, everybody. Shalom, my friends. This is Dave from Universal Truth of Mankind. As you, whoops, sorry about that. As you know, probably noticed, I have not done any videos in a while, and there's a reason for that. The reason was because I had to sit back and think to myself, how do I want to proceed? My previous videos, if you watched them, which I hope you did, I'm sure were light in many ways. I did not go into a significant amount of detail about much of anything because I was trying to introduce some ideas and some concepts to the listener. My goal was to discuss or to enlighten. It was not meant to say, this has to be it, this is it. I didn't want to get too dogmatic about anything. And I don't intend to do so, period. So I wanted to approach so many subjects that I already spoke about in a more comprehensive manner. So let's get started with this. One of the videos I talk about how we are we asked a question. Are we a body with a soul or a soul with a body? And there's a reason for such a question. Because I would hope that the majority of the people out there would say, yeah, we have souls. There is a soul within us. But we also recognize that we're a body. And there's always this equation going on, body or soul or body, going back and forth. That's normal. That's what we need to do. Now, with Universal Truth of Mankind, my goal is not to teach a religion. My goal is not to prefer one thing over the other, but rather just focus on the spirituality of us as humans so we can discover who we are in a more thorough manner. So let's take one by the other. Now, there's another aspect to this picture is when we get near the end, you'll see why it's important to contemplate these things. And it will make sense and it'll become more important. So just hang on and you shall see. So are we a body with a soul? What does that mean? Well, that gives us the idea that we are a body primarily, and a soul is a secondary aspect of ourselves. Thus, the body has control. So let's give an example of what the body likes. Okay, let's deal with sex. Probably the most prolific of ourselves. Me as a male would say, oh, she's wearing a skirt. Gee, how nice. I'd like to have children with her. That's the physical aspect of our speaking. The same thing with food. We look at food and say, I want to eat that. And you say, well, I want it so bad, I'm willing to take it away from another person. Just like if somebody lusts for somebody, and that other person's married, they may try to steal that person from their partner. So that's when the body is in full control, because it's strictly focused on the existence, the survival of the body. It's the idea of, remember I was talking about measurement, or I'm not sure I actually said it, I was thinking it. But there is a measure, there is a measurement here, and that measurement is called priority. Is the body the priority, or is the soul of the person a priority? Obviously, if you're a body with a soul, your body wins out. The only thing you lose your soul for, so to speak, is to figure out ways to achieve your bodily desires. So there you go. That's a real quick simple, concise understanding of what a body with a soul is and produces. So let's go to the opposite end and say, again, now the soul is the priority. So we're a soul with a body. What the soul, to back up just slightly here, the soul was given to mankind so that we wouldn't be prisoners of our bodies. We're not going to sin with our bodies just for the physical desires. With the soul controlling the situation, it will tell the body, no, you cannot commit adultery. No, you can't be a glutton and steal food from others. Let's say you're in a situation where people are a little hungry. Yeah, you got to eat, I understand that. But maybe you can eat half the meal that you have and give the other half to another person. And that would be the right thing to do. So when the soul is involved, it attempts to give us a proper behavior, proper perspective of us. So that's what I mean by priority. And it's somewhat objective in a sense that we each as individuals have to define it, the details, according to how we see things. Because we're all different. We all have different perspectives. We all have different experiences. We all have a different purpose in our existence. So you have to fill in the holes a little bit. And then you can figure out where your priorities are. But I want to throw out another aspect to this picture. As I said, the soul now has the priority with a soul with a body, or I should say a soul having a body. So the priority is the spiritual side of things. So what is the soul now of this equation? Well, it's another measurement that we can do. It's awareness. In other words, we all have the awareness of our five senses. We all have an awareness of our desires. We all have an awareness that we have a soul, and that soul helps connect us with the Creator. It's a gift from the Creator. And through that soul, we also connect with our fellow man at a soul level. So there's a lot of value in the soul. The soul cares about others, where the body is out for itself, more or less. Push comes to shove, it'll be out for itself. Now, these two measures, again, we're talking about priority and consciousness. Now, all these conscious things are, in a sense, levels. However, there's one little interesting facet of this, and that is we are to work at all levels of consciousness at the same time. It's not impossible, but it's extremely difficult. Many years ago, I used to go to an puncturist, for some various ailments that I had. Worked out pretty good. So once the needles were put into me, I would lay there for, I think, 30 minutes, just letting the energy dissipate, or in some cases build up. And so I had that extra time on my hand, and I would meditate. And I would meditate about the different levels of the soul. And in the future, I'll teach more about this. And then I would meditate on the levels of the soul, and then I would go up, I would come down, and I would try to be aware of all the levels at once. And I've been able to do that. It may not last long. It definitely doesn't last long. But I got to tell you, when you, for those moments, master it, it's euphoric. You realize what's around you in this physical realm. is almost meaningless. So the idea is not to be so earthly bound that you're no heavenly good, which is an expression I heard, it's very good. But you also don't want to be so heavenly bound that you're no earthly good. So you have to find a balance between these. And this is important because in this world right now, we have a war between, it's not a physical war, but we have a war between the globalists and the regionalists. I call them regionalists. What we're going to do, I'm pretty certain it's going to happen, is in the future the globalists are going to fall apart. They can't do it. But we're going to find that the regions of the world are going to separate and say, we're responsible for ourselves. Like United States, Canada, Mexico, maybe some of the Central American countries. Whereas South America will be responsible for itself. Europe would be responsible for itself. Asia would be responsible, so various parts of Asia would be responsible for its region. Like China, Taiwan, Australia, those countries would be responsible for their region. And they're all going to have their own monetary systems that are going to have a common connection, probably through gold and silver. That's my guess. I'm not a prophet, so I will not say this will happen, but this is what I'm seeing and what I suspect. But in all this, as wonderful or as bad as it is, it's nothing compared to the health of our body and soul, our soul and body, and being in a balance. And this is what I want to do in this series. This is a start off a series of videos where I would like to start now getting into a better understanding of who we are and implement spiritual tools to help us to work our way through becoming better people. And you will see as we go along, there's plenty of scripture to show that these things are real. But again, I'm not getting religious. I went all the way from being very religious to almost being anti-religious, but pro-spiritual. I'm pro-spiritual. I believe that the spiritual is a reflection of what we're supposed to become, and that's where we can learn from. The problem with religions, so you better understand what I mean, is religion is a man product, not a God product. And I'll give you an example of that. Every denomination has its own dogma. They give you this dogma that says, we believe in this, we believe in that, we don't believe in this, we don't believe in that. And that dogma becomes your instrument of interpretation of Scripture. That's why we have many Christian religions. That's why we have many sects of Judaism. There's even sects of Islam. There's sects of Hinduism. All religions have sects. In amongst themselves, they don't argue what Scripture is. There's very little argument about that. Christians don't argue about the New Testament. Judaism doesn't argue about the Hebrew Scriptures as being valid and true. Islam does not argue about the Quran. But what they do argue, what we all argue about, is our interpretation of it according to the dogma. And I'll touch on more of this in the future, of a way and ways in which we can better understand what we are reading according to its intentions versus the dogma that we've been given. And we got to do, and how do we start with that? We have to realize that there's a spiritual aspect that needs to be grasped. And that dictates everything else, not dogma. Dogma is down here. Dogma is a man-made interpretive system for the scriptures, which are meant to point to what's up here, so that we can draw it down. So please stay tuned with me. If you have any suggestions, don't be afraid to ask me. I'd be more than happy to consider. But we're in a world now where we have to start contemplating the spiritual. We're so physically oriented and based, I don't care what religion you're in, that we're ignoring the spiritual side of ourselves, which is what will transform us. Doctrines won't transform us. Ideologies won't transform us. Nothing of that sort. It's the spiritual coming down, flowing down. It's always flowing down to us. But we need to grapple what that is. So you have two measures now. What's priority to you? Your soul, your body. If it's your body, then your body with a soul. If your soul's priority, then your soul with a body. Now, of the two, in terms of priority measurement, soul with the body is the way to go. But understand, because it flows down. Things, we don't flow up, we flow down. Second measure is consciousness. The idea of being aware of our bodies, being aware of our emotions, being aware of our mind, our thoughts, being aware of the higher self, being aware of others, and being aware of the Creator. Ideally, like I said, you want to be in all at the same time, but that's not really practical for us yet. One day it will be, it's just not now. So let's not try to be what we're not. So those are your levels of consciousness. When I say others, I don't mean, oh, there's Tom, there's George. I don't mean that type of thing. When I say aware of others, I mean awareness of the soul. I'm sure you've been in many times in a group of people and you know what others are thinking. Your spouse, you know what she's thinking or what he's thinking. That means you have a real soul connection, is what I'm talking about. That type of awareness of others. On a physical level, of course, we're aware of others. You know, I'm looking at that girl in the skirt. I'm like, my physical being goes, "Ooh, time to procreate." That's not the awareness of others I am speaking of. It's the awareness of other people's souls. And trust me, you do it. You sit back and really think about it and practice at it. You start sensing other people's souls around you. You close your eyes and you'll know when somebody walks in a room. You just feel the soul presence. Anyway, I don't want to get too far off path. I will go into more detail as we go along on how to improve ourselves, how to incorporate the spiritual flow into our lives. It's not as hard as it sounds. To implement it's difficult, but the concept and the mechanics of it are quite simple. So please stay tuned. Join us next time. And I wish you a wonderful week. All right? Take care, everybody. Shalom, shalom.